The jungle was burning. Orange flames rose high between the giant trees, and smoke rolled like dark clouds across the sky. Screams of battle echoed in the distance, the sound of metal clashing against energy weapons and the cries of soldiers. Falling one after another, among the chaos, a young alien girl stumbled, her body weak, her arms tied by a rough rope, and her feet dragging on the ground. Her scales shimmered faintly under the flickering firelight. Green and silver mixed with dirt and blood, she had been captured by the humans, the very enemy her people feared more than death itself. The soldier holding her chain walked with a heavy step, his black armor scratched and marked by combat. His helmet was gone, revealing a human face sharp and tired, his dark eyes fixed ahead, his jaw clenched. Every story she had ever heard about humans said they were merciless. Cold and brutal, they destroyed planets, broke empires, and enslaved those who resisted. To her people, the sight of a human soldier was the sight of certain death. The alien girl's chest rose and fell quickly, fear closing around her heart. She whispered a prayer to her ancestors in her own tongue, hoping they would guide her spirit after the human ended her life. Her lips trembled, her golden eyes stared at the ground, but her mind painted the picture again and again. The human would pull out his weapon, press it against her, and fire. She imagined the sharp pain, the last breath, and the silence that would follow. The human soldier finally stopped. They had reached a clearing where sunlight pierced through the smoke. The air smelled of burning leaves and metal blood. The girl fell to her knees, too weak to stand, her thin body shaking from exhaustion. The soldier turned slowly, looking down at her, his shadow falling over her like the shadow of a predator. He lifted his weapon and aimed it directly at her chest. Her breath caught in her throat, her eyes widened, tears forming at the edge. Every instinct told her this was the end. She closed her eyes tightly, waiting for the blast. Her people had always said that humans had no mercy, and now she was about to prove it true with her final heartbeat. But nothing happened. The seconds passed, long and heavy, the air filled only with the sound of the jungle crackling and the distant cries of war. Slowly, she opened her eyes, her chest still heaving with fear. The human was still standing there, the weapon steady in his hands. But his finger was not on the trigger. He stared at her, his dark eyes unreadable, filled not with anger, but something else, something she could not understand. The girl blinked in confusion. Why was he waiting? Why was he not finishing it? Her voice broke as she whispered, "Do it, human, end it quickly." But the soldier did not move. Instead, his grip loosened, and with one slow motion, he lowered the weapon. The metal touched the ground, silent and heavy. The girl's heart skipped, disbelief flooding her mind. The human then did something even stranger. He reached to his belt, pulled out a small canteen, and tossed it in front of her. Water sloshed inside, catching the light of the flames. Her dry throat ached at the sight. Her lips cracked from thirst. She looked up at him, shocked. Her hands still tied. He bent down, cut the ropes with his blade, and stood back. Her arms fell free, blood rushing back into them with painful tingles. She stared at her hands, then back at him, her voice shaking. "Why? Why would you free me?" The human gave no answer, his face calm, his eyes locked on hers. He only nodded once, then turned his back. He began walking away, step by step into the burning forest, his figure fading into the smoke and sunlight. The alien girl sat frozen, her mind spun in circles. This was not what she expected. This was not what she was told about humans. He had the chance to kill her. But instead, he spared her, freed her, and even gave her water. Her golden eyes narrowed, her breath uneven. Was it a trick, a trap, or something else? Her heart pounded faster than ever. She thought she understood what humans were, but in that moment, everything she believed began to break apart. And as the soldier disappeared into the trees, the question that echoed in her mind was more terrifying than the thought of death. Why did the human let her live? The alien girl sat in the ashes of the clearing, her hands still tingling from freedom, The rope marks burned across her wrists, but it was not the pain that shook her. It was the memory of what had just happened. The human soldier had lowered his weapon, cut her bonds, and walked away. He had no reason, no explanation, and no promise. He had simply turned his back and vanished into the jungle smoke. For a long moment she stayed still, afraid to move. The war cries had faded into the distance, but the jungle itself was alive with whispers. Leaves shifted under the wind. Strange creatures crawled across the forest floor, and shadows flickered like ghosts among the trees. She held the canteen in her hands, staring at the reflection of her golden eyes in the water. Her throat was dry, burning, and yet she hesitated to drink. Why would a human, her enemy, give her life instead of taking it? Her people had always taught that humans never spared anyone. They were destroyers, mercenaries, and monsters. But she had seen something in his eyes, something her elders never spoke of. There had been no hate, no bloodlust, only a quiet weight, the kind of weight carried by someone who had seen too much. She lifted the canteen and drank. The water was warm and tasted of metal, but to her it was sweeter than any nectar. Every drop felt like a betrayal of everything she believed. Her own mind screamed at her, "This is a trick. This is poison. This is the enemy's trap." And yet her heart whispered something else. Maybe the human was different. The sound of branches snapping broke her thoughts. She looked up sharply, golden eyes wide. Between the smoke and the shafts of light, she saw movement, small, fast, hunting. Not human, not from her people either. A wild predator of the jungle, four-legged, its hide thick with armored scales and its mouth full of jagged teeth. It crept closer, eyes locked on her, saliva dripping from its jaws. Her body froze, her hands still trembling from exhaustion. She had no weapon, no strength left. The beast lunged, a blur of claws and hunger. She braced for pain, but once again, the human appeared. He came from the smoke like a shadow. His blade flashed as he moved between her and the predator. The steel tore across the beast's hide, sparks flying. As armor met metal, the creature shrieked and stumbled back, but the human pressed forward. Every strike of his weapon was filled with precision and power. He did not hesitate, did not falter, until the beast fell lifeless to the ground. The girl's breath caught, her chest tight. He had returned, not to finish her life, but to save it again. He wiped the blade clean, his face unreadable as he looked down at her. No words, no pride, only a simple action. He reached out his hand, offering to help her stand. Her instincts told her to run, to escape into the jungle while she could. Yet something inside her shifted. She looked at his hand, rough and scarred, a warrior's hand, and slowly she placed her own trembling fingers into his. He pulled her to her feet with quiet strength. For the first time in her life, she did not feel like prey before a human. She felt like something else, something she could not yet name. They stood in silence, the dead predator at their feet. The human glanced at the horizon where smoke rose higher. He pointed in one direction, then began to walk. He did not order her to follow, did not force her. He simply moved, leaving the choice in her hands. The girl's mind raced. She could run away now, back into the forest, back to the ruins of her people. She could vanish, never see him again. But deep inside, a new thought stirred. If she left, she would never know why he had spared her. If she left, she would never understand what made him different. The thought of never finding the answer was heavier than the thought of danger. Her legs moved before her mind decided. Step by step, she followed, her golden eyes watching his back. Every sound of his armor, every careful step, felt like a path. She had no choice but to walk. She stayed a few paces behind, unsure if he wanted her there. But when he glanced over his shoulder, his eyes softened just slightly, as if he had expected her choice all along. The jungle swallowed them both, the light fading into shadows around them. The cries of war were far away, but danger still lurked in every tree. The human silence was heavy, yet it felt less like a wall and more like a shield. The alien girl realized that from this moment on, her fate was tied not to her people, not to the war, but to the human who had made a decision she could not explain. It was a silent decision, a choice that would change both their lives, and as they disappeared deeper into the unknown, she knew that whatever came next, the universe itself would never be the same. The jungle grew darker as the smoke thinned. The human soldier walked ahead in silence, his armor scratched, his shoulders heavy but steady. The alien girl followed, her golden eyes fixed on his back, her steps soft and careful. She was free. Now yet she chose to stay behind him, a choice she did not fully understand herself. Every crack of a branch made her tense. Every shadow between the trees looked like danger. The war was still raging beyond the hills, but here the jungle was alive with its own kind of threat. Strange insects hummed with glowing wings, animals stalked unseen, and the air smelled of blood and smoke. But what unsettled her most was not the jungle, it was the human. He had spared her twice, and yet he had no words, no reason. His silence was heavier than any chain. At last she spoke, her voice soft but trembling. "Why? Why do you not kill me?" The soldier did not turn, his boots crunching against the burned soil. He only muttered a single sentence, his voice rough like stone. "Because I'm not like the others." Then he walked on, leaving her with more questions than answers. They reached a stream, its water reflecting the dim light of the rising moons. The human knelt, washing blood and ash from his blade. She crouched on the opposite side, her reflection rippling in the current. Her heart beat fast as she remembered the stories. Humans never broke orders, never showed weakness, never spared lives. If he had done this, it meant he was already in danger. His own kind would not forgive such mercy. And she was right. The sound of boots came from the trees, heavy and sharp. Voices echoed in the human tongue, harsh and commanding. The soldier stiffened, his hand tightening around his weapon. He whispered without looking at her, "Stay low." Figures in black armor stepped into the clearing, rifles glowing with blue energy. They were humans too, but not like him. Their helmets gleamed, their movements sharp, their eyes cold. The leader raised his weapon, his voice ringing like steel. "Soldier, you are under arrest. You broke command. You spared the enemy." The girl's breath caught. They knew, they had seen. The human in front of her, this soldier who had shown mercy, was now a traitor in their eyes. But before she could even think, another sound filled the air. A screech, high and sharp, like blades tearing against stone. From the shadows came her own people, aliens dressed in bone armor, carrying curved blades and spears crackling with energy. They too had followed. They too had seen her walking with a human. Their leader snarled in their tongue, his eyes burning with fury. "You dare walk beside him. You shame your blood. You betray your kind." The girl froze, her heart pounding. On one side were the humans, his people, calling him traitor. On the other side were her people, her blood, calling her traitor. And between them stood the lone human soldier, his blade drawn, his body tense, his eyes steady. Enemies on both sides. Enemies who saw no difference between mercy and betrayal. The leader of the human squad raised his hand. "Step aside, soldier. Hand her over, and maybe we let you live," the alien leader hissed. His spear pointed forward. "No, he is mine, she is mine. Both of their lives end here." The soldier's voice cut through the smoke and silence. "No." One word, simple and unshaken. He stepped forward, placing himself between the girl and all others. The girl's breath trembled, her chest heavy. Why was he doing this? Why was he choosing her over his own orders, over his own people? The tension snapped like a bowstring. The jungle erupted in violence. The human squad opened fire, blue bolts flashing through the trees. The alien warriors charged, their blades glowing in arcs of light. And in the middle of it all, the lone soldier fought. His blade struck with precision. His body moved with speed and fury. Every attack came at him from both sides, yet he did not retreat. His armor cracked, sparks burst. But still he held his ground. The girl hid behind a fallen tree, her heart racing as she watched. Her people shouted curses at her, calling her broken, lost, unworthy. The humans shouted at him, calling him traitor, fool, weak. And yet in that chaos, she saw something no one else could. He was not fighting for orders, not for glory, not for conquest. He was fighting for something deeper, something nameless. Blood stained the ground. Bodies fell, cries rang out. At last the survivors pulled back, each side retreating into the smoke. The human soldier stood in the middle, his chest heaving, his armor cracked, his blade dripping red. He looked back at her, his eyes tired but steady. He had chosen, and now both their worlds wanted them dead. The girl's hands shook as she stepped closer. She should have run, should have fled back to her people or vanished into the jungle. But her voice broke with the truth. You are hunted by your kind, and now I am hunted by mine. The soldier nodded once, his face unreadable. Then we survived together. The girl's chest tightened, her golden eyes wide. She realized in that moment that her fate was no longer tied to her people. Her fate was tied to him, and for the first time. The thought did not terrify her. It gave her hope. The jungle was silent after the clash. Ash still drifted in the air, glowing faintly in the moonlight. The human soldier stood tall, though his armor was cracked, his body bruised, and his blade heavy with blood. The alien girl stepped from behind the fallen tree, her golden eyes fixed on him, around them. The ground was littered with the bodies of both humans and aliens. Enemies on both sides had fled, but they would return, stronger and angrier than before. The girl's throat tightened as she spoke, her voice shaking. You fought them all. Both your kind and mine. Why? The human soldier turned his head slightly, his dark eyes calm though his chest rose with heavy breaths. Because neither side was right, he said, his voice quiet but firm. Because they wanted death, and I wanted something else. She felt the weight of his words. It was strange to hear a human talk about wanting anything beyond war and blood. Her people had painted humans as beasts. But here before her was one who carried mercy like a weapon. She could not understand him, and yet she wanted to. They left the clearing and walked deeper into the jungle. Night fell heavier, the sounds of insects louder, the trees glowing faintly with bioluminescent vines. The human moved with caution, checking every path, every shadow. The girl followed. Her steps softer now, her fear slowly turning into something else. When he stumbled slightly, she felt her chest tighten. An instinct to reach for him, though she held back. At last, they found a cave hidden behind thick roots. The soldier pushed the vines aside and stepped in. The air inside was cool and damp, the walls glittering faintly with crystals. He sat down heavily, setting his weapon across his knees. The girl stayed at the entrance, her golden eyes watching him in silence. For a long time neither spoke. Only the drip of water echoed through the cave. Then the human took a ration from his belt. Dry food wrapped in a small packet. He broke it in half and extended one piece toward her. She stared at it, her hands curling into fists. Sharing food was sacred among her people. An act that carried meaning. To accept meant trust. To refuse meant rejection. Slowly, with trembling hands, she took it. The food was dry and tasteless, but as she ate, she felt warmth in her chest. Not from the food itself, but from the act. He had risked himself to fight both sides, and now he risked his rations to feed her. Every action of his broke the walls she had built her entire life. Later, as the night deepened, the soldier leaned back against the cave wall, his eyes half closed. The girl sat nearby, her knees pulled close, her tail curling around her legs for comfort. The silence grew heavy until she finally whispered, "Tell me about your world." He opened his eyes slowly, glancing at her. His voice softened as he began to speak. "Earth is blue," he said, "oceans that stretch forever, forests that breathe with life, skies filled with stars you can see without smoke." She closed her eyes, picturing it, blue oceans, endless and alive, so different from the broken ruins of her homeworld. His voice carried a strange rhythm, rough but gentle. He spoke of mountains capped with snow, of music that rose in the night, of people who laughed even in the darkest times. When he stopped, she opened her eyes, her heart heavy with an ache she did not expect. "My world," she whispered, "was made of crystal skies and towers of light. They glowed with colors during the dawn, but now all of it is gone." Her voice cracked, and she turned away, not wanting him to see the tears in her golden eyes. But the soldier did not speak. He only sat in silence, listening. Somehow his silence felt different now, not heavy, but gentle, as if he carried her pain with her. Hours passed, the jungle quiet outside, when she shivered from the cold. He removed a piece of his armor and set it beside her. It was heavy and warm, still carrying the heat of his body. She hesitated but accepted it, wrapping it around her shoulders, her eyes lifted to his face. Shadowed by the dim glow of the crystals, for the first time, she saw not just a soldier, not just a human, but something more. A man with scars not only on his body, but in his soul. Sleep came slowly. She drifted into dreams with his voice echoing in her memory, the voice of oceans and forests. When she woke in the middle of the night, she found him still awake, sitting watch at the mouth of the cave. His blade rested across his knees, his eyes sharp on the darkness outside. He had not rested, not even for a moment. He was guarding her, an enemy, as if her life mattered. Her heart tightened in confusion. Why would he do this? Why did he carry her safety like it was his duty? And why, when she looked at him, did she no longer see only an enemy? The night passed, and dawn painted the jungle in pale light. The soldier stood, stretching his tired limbs. The girl rose too, her eyes meeting his. They did not speak, but something had changed. Something fragile and strange now linked them together. A bond that neither war, nor blood, nor fear could easily break. It was an unlikely bond, born not from peace, not from trust, but from survival, from silence, from the simple choice to walk the same path. And though neither would admit it, deep inside they both knew the path they walked together would change them forever.